Hello, everyone. This is your loving host, Dr. Rakshan Hashmi, live from her husband's room in hospital. And folks, my husband is not very well. Please pray for him. And I want to remind you that these are my two books. The, these are my two books. The first one is The Modern Mughal Mentality, New Strategies to Succeed in India and the Global Marketplace. And when this book came, it was Amazon bestseller as well as hot number one new release on Amazon. And my second book is The Outbreak of a Monstrous Infection. And when this book came, in a very creative manner, I have talked about bioterrorism, and it came before COVID. So, in a very creative way, I have written a suspense story about bioterrorism, and I want a movie to be made of. Bioterrorism and on this book, and this book is Amazon bestseller, and my first book, The Modern Mughal Mentality, was also Amazon bestseller. Having said that, folks, now I will be talking about AMU minority character. And if you want to buy my book, you can go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble, and it is available worldwide, And this book brings food to the table. So please go and buy this book and give me an honest review on that. Having said that, folks, now I will be talking about AMU minority character. The AMU minority character is a very big news, for us Aliks, And so let me tell you some, uh, and it is from Economic Times, the news. SC SC overrules 1967 order denying AMU minority status, new bench to decide. This is the Supreme Court on Friday overruled its 1967 judgment about the Aligarh Muslim University AMU, and here it is. And here it is. It says SC overrules 1967 order, and it is Economic Times. And it says SC overrules 1967 order denying AMU minority status, new bench to decide. The Supreme Court on Friday overruled its 1967 judgment about the Aligarh Muslim University AMU that became the basis for denying the minority status to the institute. In a 4-3 split decision, a bench led by Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud overruled judgment in the 1967 Aziz Pasha case, and also said that a new bench will decide on the minority status of the AMU. The court directed that the AMU's minority status be decided again based on the principles of this verdict. The view in Aziz Pasha that minority character stops when status comes into force is overruled. Whether the AMU is minority or not will be decided as per this judgment, said Chandra Chud on 8 November 2024. This news comes, and So now, folks, what is the AMU minority character and what happened in 1967? I have the insider news of it, and Mrs. Indira Gandhi was the prime minister, and my grandfather took over as the AMU vice chancellor after Ali Yavar Jung, and in 1968, he took 1968 January. He took the charge in 1968 January. And let me double check it because I was a kid then. So let me see. I was very small at that point. So let me see what it is. Okay, Abdul Alim. So this is about my grandfather, and it says Abdul Alim was a scholar, uh, educationalist, journalist, and writer in Urdu. He was the professor of Arabic at Aligarh Muslim University and also served as his vice chancellor from 1968 to 1974. Yes, so that is true, 1968 to 1974. I was like 1 or 2 years old, I don't remember. And the other thing was, that my grandfather was best friends with Dr. Zakir Hussain. So all of a sudden he was called to New Delhi, and we were very I go and greet my grandfather every day because I used to live with him. And when I went, I came to know that he has gone to New Delhi. He has gone to New Delhi. I think so, I am a more important personality that somebody is calling me when they see that I am live here. So he was invited to New Delhi, and I went and I said, "Where is Nana Abba?" I used to call him Nana Abba, and they said like he has gone to New Delhi. Zakir Nana has called him, and I used to call Dr. Zakir Hussain Zakir Nana because although he was my grandpa was very young then, Dr. Zakir Hussain, but they were best friends. And in 19, let me go again, and there was this Ali Yavar Jung, the vice chancellor of AMU, which is so unfortunate that he was beaten up by students, and so yeah, I have met Ali Awar Jung many times and his wife many times. In fact, her wife's feet were so beautiful. Once I was sitting in her lap, and it was so beautiful that I said that I want to, when I grow up, I want to have feet like her. And that's why my things with beautiful chappals and beautiful like I told my Nana Abba that I want to have lot of sandals and all, and that's why my interest started. So now let's go back and talk about what happened, that unfortunate incidents. Okay. It all began on April 25, 1965, when the Vice Chancellor of AMU, Ali Awar Jung, was grievously assaulted by a student. This provided an excellent opportunity for Education Minister M.C. Chagla, a classic Uncle Tom, ever more royalist than the king where Muslims were concerned. He had an ordinance issued on May 20, 1965, and it is from First Post. And here it is. I'm reading from here. And it says, it all began on April 25, 1965, when the Vice Chancellor of AMU, Ali Awar Jung, was grievously assaulted by a student. This proved an excellent opportunity, provided an excellent opportunity for Education Minister M.C. Chagla, a classic Uncle Tom, ever more loyalist than the king where Muslims were concerned. He had an ordinance issued on May 20, 1965, destroying the autonomy of the AMU. The Vice Chancellor was persuaded to withdraw his resignation. To his credit, he stood up to Chagla and strongly refuted his false charges against Aligarh. Was it, however, necessary to suspend the constitution of AMU within days? Asked the distinguished French scholar Violet Graff in an excellent article in the Economic and Political Weekly entitled Aligarh's Long Quest for Minority Status in the magazine August 11, 1990 issue. He, Chagla, overdid it. She She remarked an ordinance soon to become an act changed drastically the statutes, the main amendment being related to Section 23(2) of the Founding Act of 1920, which provided some people are just laughing here outside the gallery. If we laugh or if we talk little louder, they come and say, "Oh, patient is here." But look at these staffs, that what they are doing, what they are doing. So this is harassment. I feel like that. The composition and power of court the had been the supreme governing body with only one essential modification introduced at the time of independence 1951 amendment. The clause providing for exclusive Muslim membership had been dropped. Now, under the new dispensation 1965 Amendment Act, the court was reduced to a nominal advisory body while authority was concentrated within the hands of the vice chancellor and members of the executive council, who were themselves nominated by the visitor, the president of India, or were ex officio members. The issue became immersed in litigation and politics. Few cared to recall the rich history behind the AMU's establishment. Each stand must be examined carefully. Here we are concerned with the law alone. The Supreme Court upheld the act which replaced the ordinance and did so in a judgment that reeks of errors galore and much more. Aziz Basha versus Union India 1968 Supreme Court Report 833 AIR 1968. The issue before the Supreme Court was simple. A college or a school can be run by a society registered under the Societies Registration Act, not so a university. It must have a legal personality that can be confirmed only by a statute. Limited companies can acquire such status by following the provisions of the Companies Act. There is no such law regard to universities. A university is incorporated and thus acquires a legal personality only by virtue of a statute, especially enacted either by Parliament or a state legislature. The Supreme Court accepted that the words educational institutions occurring in Article 31 are of very wide import and would include a university also. That being the case, how on earth can a minority possibly establish a university except by asking the government to get enacted a law incorporating the body it had formed thus and conferring it on legal personality? Surely all that a minority can do is raise funds, establish a society for incorporation, acquire properties, and enlist personnel and so on. It can then solicit a statute that confers a legal personality on the society and gets the university going. The statute only confers the corporate status. The only way it could establish the actual establishment is by the minority. Only its incorporation is by a legislature. The history, the Supreme Court's resume of the AMU's history is perfunctory, ignoring completely the motivating force behind the societies. The idea of a university was born at the very birth of a school in 1873 when the court heard the case that history was available in works of repute. This is all the court had to say of that rich history. It appears that as far back as 1879, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan thought that the backwardness of the Muslim community was due to their neglect intellect of modern education. He therefore conceived the idea of imparting liberal education to Muslims in literature and science, while at the same time instruction was to be given in Muslim religion and traditions. Also, with the object in mind, he organized a committee to devise ways and means for educational regeneration of Muslims, and in May 1872, a society called the Mohammedan Anglo Oriental College Fund Committee. I think they are making a lot of noise. Let me close this. It's ridiculous. He organized a committee to devise. Uh, he In consequence of the activities of the committee, a school was opened in May 1873. In 1876, the school became high school, and in 1877, Lord Lytton, then Viceroy of India, laid the foundation stone for the establishment of a college, the Mohammedan Anglo Oriental College (MAO) College. Aligarh was established thereafter, and it is said a flourishing institution by the time Sir Syed Ahmad Khan died in 1898. It is it is said that thereafter the idea of establishing a Muslim university gathered through from year to year at the turn of the century, and by 1911 some funds were collected and a Muslim University Association was established for the purpose of establishing a teaching university at Aligarh. Long negotiations took place between the association and the Government of India, which eventually resulted in the establishment of Aligarh University in 1920 by the 1920 Act. It may be mentioned that before that, a large sum of money was collected by the association for the university, as the Government of India had made it a condition that rupees 30 lakhs must be collected for the university before it could be established. Further, it seems that the existing MAO college was made the basis for the university and was made over the authority established by the 1920 Act for the administration of the university, along with the properties and funds attached to the college, the major part of which had been contributed by Muslims. Through some contributions were made by other communities as well. There follows summary of the Aligarh Muslim University Act 1920 and the Amending Act of 1965, which emphasizes on the powers of the government, which is not uncommon in such statutes and is meant to prevent mismanagement. It then concludes, this brings us to the end of the sections of the 1920 Act. There is nothing anywhere in any section of the Act which vests the administration of the university in the Muslim community. The fact that in the proviso to section 23(1) it is provided that the court of the university shall consist only of Muslims does not necessarily mean that the administration of the university was vested or was intended to be vested in the Muslim minority. If anything, some of the important provisions to which we have already referred show that the final power in almost every matter of importance was in the Lord Rector, who was the Governor General, or in the Governor General in Council. The court's tortuous logic, how did their lordship expect the Muslim community to acquire the administration of the AMU by electing representatives in a general election? It did what we correct early to statutes of the AMU that set up its body with defined powers. Read this. It is true, as is clear from the 1920 Act, that the nucleus of the Aligarh University was the MAO College, which was till then a teaching institution under the Allahabad University. The conversion of that college, if we may use this expression, into a university was, however, not by the Muslim minority. It took place by virtue of the 1920 Act, which was passed by the central legislature. There was no Aligarh University existing till the 1920 Act was passed. It was brought into being by 1920 Act and must therefore be held to have been established by the central legislature, which by passing the 1920 Act incorporated it. How could the AMU have existed as a university before the Act was passed? It may be that the 1920 Act was passed as a result of efforts of the Muslim minority But that does not mean that the Aligarh University, when it came into being under the 1920 Act, was established by the Muslim minority. Thus, the AMU having been established only by the Act of 1920, the amendment of the Act in 1975 could not be challenged. The Muslims had given up the property they had acquired for the university once the Act was passed. The court held the tortuous logic is capped with a gross misquotation. Read this. There was no law in India which prohibited any private individual or body from establishing a university, and it was therefore open to a private individual or body to establish a university. This is not at all correct. There is a good deal in common between educational institutions which are not universities and those which are universities. Both teach students and both have teachers for the purpose. But what distinguishes a university from any other educational institution is that a university grants degrees while other educational institutions cannot. It is this granting of degrees by a university which distinguishes it from ordinary run of educational institutions. See St. David's College, Lamster versus Minister of Education. Thus, under the law in India, there was no prohibition against establishment of universities by private individuals or bodies, and if any university was so established, it must of necessity be granting degrees before it be called a university. With respect, the absence of any law prohibiting the establishment of a university by a private individual or body is meaningless. What is to the point is whether a university can at all be established without the sanction of a law. Now, for the misquotation, it is this granting of degrees by a university which distinguishes it from an ordinary run of educational institutions. See St. David's College, Lamster versus Minister of Education 1950, 1 AER 559. Now they describe the case. You can read that. And so this was little bit, and it is from this here. So what happened was that Aliyavar Jung, who was the VC, was beaten up, and university was closed, and lot of students were arrested. So my grandfather, every VC comes with a mandate from the Prime Minister of from the Prime Minister of India and the President of India. And President of India with PM's recommendation, the President of India chooses the Vice Chancellor. So my grandfather was given the task to see who are those students who did that, and most of them were arrested, and to bring peace. So it was very, very torturous period, and he was given a very difficult task. And you can go and read about my grandfather, who was a freedom fighter, and he needs to be respected and all. And me as an individual also has to be respected. Just see from where I am giving this live broadcast, and some people were in the hallway and they were laughing like anything. They have no respect for patients or anything. So I would like to bring that to the authorities. And having said that, folks, now the minority character was taken because Mrs. Indira Gandhi, the then Prime Minister, was very close to my grandfather, and also my grandfather was in the cell with her father Jawaharlal Nehru, and she used to call my grandfather Professor Abdul Alim. And this minority character thing hasn't come, just because of some help from Aligarh Muslim University Vice Chancellor. I thank the Vice Chancellor for being there, and I know the Vice Chancellor very much. I know her, and what it is that many people have worked to get the AMU minority character back, and that is what I am saying here. And let's see, because that news was very confusing. It says in the background of the 1967 Aziz Basha ruling. In the 1967 Aziz Basha case, the Supreme Court ruled that AMU established by a central legislative act could not claim minority status. This decision hinged on the argument that AMU was created by a statute, not solely by minority opportunity. However, Friday's majority judgment left by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud reconsidered the interpretation, asserting that an institution does not lose its minority status merely due to establishment through legislation. Instead, the court emphasized the importance of examining who was fundamentally behind the establishment of the institution and whether it aligns with the provisions of Article 30, which protects minority educational institutions. So Supreme Court said this, and what I read, and it says that Chief Justice and majority opinion. Chief Justice Chandrachud and Justice Sanjeev Khanna, Suryakant, and G.B. Pardiwala led the majority opinion, which stressed that the question of minority status requires an inquiry into the founders of the institution. According to the court, if that inquiry is pointing towards a minority community, then the institution can claim minority status as per as Article 30. So that is what it is, and the bench has delegated this detailed review to smaller bench, which will analyze the facts and make a final determination. So this is what, and let's see now what happens. And this thing has been like AMU wanted the minority character, and this thing has been going on for a very long time, and let's see that what happens now, and what is there. And there are many people, many colleagues and all who have, including myself, who has worked very hard for this, and I am very thankful to United States of America, President Biden and President Trump, as well as Justice Department Honorable Merrick Garland, and also his one of the attorneys, Ad O'Callaghan, who was involved in this, I know. And so you should be very thankful, AMU Vice Chancellor, to America for doing all this for you. Having said that, and you are getting help from America, and PM Modi cannot do this alone. So it is not solely PM Modi's thing, it is America who wants that. And America has listened to me that I wanted AMU minority character, and I am very thankful to President Trump, President Biden, Madam Kamala Harris, and also the team who has worked on it. There are a lot of FBI agents and Secret Service agents in the team who have worked, and they have shed their blood and all for this cause. So I am thankful to all of them, including the director of FBI, Chris Wray, because I love my team a lot. Having said that, folks, now I want a sponsorship to carry on this show, and God bless America and long live America. And see my husband how he is. Say hello. 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 See in which circumstances I am working, and God bless America and long live America. Having said that, and so PM Modi cannot accomplish this without without the help of President Biden and President Trump, as well as Justice Department Honorable Merrick Garland and his team, as well as Attorney Ad O'Callaghan. Having said that, folks, now I will end, and I want a sponsorship for my show, and that will bring lot of will bring food to the table, because we are only on social security. Having said that, folks, cheers and bye bye.